The bitter winter morning wrapped its icy fingers around Lake Morrison, where a layer of deceptive white stretched as far as the eye could see. Steam rose from the frozen surface, dancing in the weak January sunlight that barely pierced through heavy gray clouds. The temperature had plunged to 15 degrees overnight, turning the lake's surface into a crystalline trap that looked solid enough to support any weight, but appearances can be deceiving. Luna, a 3-year-old German shepherd with warm brown eyes and a thick winter coat, had made her home in an abandoned boathouse near the lake's edge. There she tended to her 6 4-week-old puppies, keeping them warm through the harsh winter nights. Their tiny bodies, still covered in downy fur, huddled close to their mother's warmth each evening as the temperature dropped and the wind howled outside their shelter. This morning started like any other, with Luna's protective gaze watching over her playing puppies. But something changed. Perhaps it was hunger driving her forward, or maybe a perceived threat that only her keen senses could detect. Whatever the reason, Luna made a decision that would put her entire family at risk. She stepped onto the frozen lake, her paws leaving delicate prints in the light dusting of snow that covered the ice. Her puppies, trusting their mother completely, followed without hesitation. Their tiny paws padded along in her tracks, their little tails wagging with innocent excitement at this new adventure. They had no way of knowing the danger that lay ahead, their complete faith placed in their mother's guidance. The first warning came as a whisper, subtle cracks in the ice like small sighs carried on the wind. Luna's ears perked up, her maternal instincts suddenly screaming danger, but it was too late. They were already 50 yards from shore when the ice began to groan beneath their weight. The family found themselves marooned on a small patch of stable ice, surrounded by a web of fractures spreading in every direction. The dark water churned menacingly below, visible through the cracks that grew wider with each passing moment. The puppies, sensing their mother's fear, pressed against her warm body. Their small whimpers carried across the ice, a sound that would break any heart that heard it. Luna's body told the whole story. Her ears laid back against her head, her tail held low, and her eyes desperately scanning for an escape route that didn't exist. She positioned herself at the center of her puppies, forming a protective circle around them with her body, trying to shield them from the biting wind and the danger that surrounded them. Sarah Chen had just started her morning walk along the lake's edge, thermal coffee mug in hand, when she spotted the stranded family. The kindergarten teacher stopped dead in her tracks, her warm breath catching in her throat at the sight before her. The coffee mug slipped from her fingers, forgotten in the snow as she pulled out her phone with trembling hands. Within minutes, Sarah's calls for help drew others to the shore. Dog walkers, joggers, and local residents gathered at the water's edge, their collective breath creating a cloud of concern in the freezing air. Phones emerged from pockets as the growing crowd desperately tried to think of someone, anyone, who could help this trapped family. Time worked against them as the morning sun, though weak, slowly warmed the ice. Each crack and groan from the frozen surface sent shivers through the watching crowd. The ice was too thin for anyone to venture out. Any wrong move could send the entire family plunging into the freezing waters below. Luna seemed to understand their precarious situation, keeping her puppies tightly grouped together on their shrinking island of safety. Emergency sirens wailed in the distance, their sound carrying across the frozen landscape. But as the gathered crowd watched helplessly from shore, the question hung heavy in the air. Who could possibly reach this family in time? The next few minutes would determine the fate of this brave mother and her innocent puppies, trapped in nature's frozen grip, their lives balanced on the edge of disaster. The gathered crowd grew larger by the minute, their helpless murmurs mixing with the whimpers of the trapped puppies. Among them stood Mike Erickson, a retired firefighter who had seen his share of ice rescues in his 30 years of service. His weathered face grimaced as he assessed the situation. "The ice is too thin for a conventional rescue," he announced to the anxious onlookers. "One wrong step, and we'd have more victims than survivors." The first emergency response team arrived with flashing lights and blaring sirens. the local fire department's rescue unit. Chief Sandra Martinez jumped out before the truck had fully stopped, her experienced eyes immediately scanning the scene. The sight made her heart sink. A mother, German Shepherd, and 6 puppies trapped 50 yards out, surrounded by a spiderweb of cracks that grew more pronounced with each passing minute. "We need ice rescue equipment," she barked into her radio, "and get animal control here now." But even as she issued the orders, Martinez knew they were facing a nightmare scenario. The standard ice rescue sled would be too heavy. The fractured ice wouldn't support its weight. A human rescuer crawling out would likely break through before reaching the stranded family. Luna seemed to sense their dilemma. She stood perfectly still at the center of her puppies, her dark eyes fixed on the shore as if pleading for help. One of her puppies, a little male with a white patch on his chest, attempted to venture toward the edge of their ice island. Luna gently pulled him back with her mouth, tucking him safely among his siblings. The crowd collectively held their breath at this display of maternal devotion. Time ticked by with excruciating slowness. Animal control arrived with nets and poles, but one look at the distance and ice conditions told them their equipment would be useless. The water rescue team from the next county was still 20 minutes out. The morning sun continued its slow climb, each ray of warmth threatening to further weaken the ice beneath the trapped family. Then came a sound that made Luna's ears prick up, a distant thumping that grew steadily louder. The crowd turned their faces skyward, searching for the source. Through the misty morning air, a dark shape emerged, growing larger as it approached. The rhythmic beating of rotors echoed across the frozen lake. "That's not our rescue chopper," Chief Martinez said, puzzled. She grabbed her radio, trying to determine who was responding to their crisis. The helicopter was unlike anything the local emergency services operated. Larger, more powerful, painted in distinctive orange and white. The aircraft drew closer, and someone in the crowd shouted in recognition, "It's the Coast Guard!" The revelation rippled through the onlookers. The Coast Guard station was over 50 miles away based on the ocean coast. What were they doing here, so far inland? As the helicopter approached, its downdraft stirred up a miniature blizzard of loose snow from the lake's surface. Luna crouched lower, sheltering her puppies from the turbulence. The crowd watched in amazement as the aircraft maintained a precise hover over the scene, its experienced crew assessing the situation from above. Inside the cockpit, Lieutenant Sarah Reeves and her crew had been conducting a training exercise when they picked up the emergency chatter on their radio. Without hesitation, they had diverted from their planned route. Now, looking down at the stranded dogs, Reeves knew they had made the right call. But even with their advanced equipment and trained personnel, this wouldn't be a simple rescue. The ice was too unstable for a straight touchdown, and the rotor's downdraft risked further fracturing the surface. They would need a precision approach that had never been attempted with animals, especially not with 6 tiny puppies involved. In the cargo bay, rescue swimmer Jake Thompson prepared his gear. In 15 years of service, he had pulled people from raging seas and floodwaters, but this would be different. One wrong move could send the entire family into the freezing water, and corralling panic-stricken dogs on breaking ice was not covered in any training manual. Below, Luna watched the helicopter with a mixture of fear and hope. Her puppies pressed closer to her, frightened by the noise but trusting in their mother's calm presence. The ice beneath them groaned ominously, creating new cracks that spread like lightning bolts through the translucent surface. Chief Martinez's radio crackled to life with a transmission from the helicopter. The Coast Guard crew had a plan, but it would require perfect timing and more than a little luck. As they prepared for their unprecedented rescue attempt, the crowd on shore fell silent, united in their desperate hope for these 7 souls trapped between ice and sky. The Coast Guard helicopter hovered like a guardian angel above the frozen lake, its orange and white frame catching the winter sun. Inside, Lieutenant Sarah Reeves kept the aircraft steady despite the challenging winds, her years of experience evident in every minor adjustment. Through her headset came the calm, measured voice of rescue swimmer Jake Thompson. I have visual confirmation. Mother and 6 puppies, all alive, ice deteriorating rapidly. Request permission to begin rescue operation. Permission granted, Reeves responded, her voice steady despite the pressure. Winds holding at 15 knots. You've got a 20-minute window before we need to refuel. Make it count, Jake. Thompson performed one final check of his rescue harness, a piece of equipment designed for human victims that he'd have to adapt for this unique situation. He'd made quick modifications, adding soft loops that could secure small puppies without harming them. At his feet lay a special mesh bag, borrowed from animal control moments before takeoff, lined with emergency blankets to keep the puppies warm during their ascent. Below, Luna watched the helicopter with unwavering attention. The downdraft had created a swirling vortex of snow around her family's ice island, but she held her ground, using her body to shield her puppies from the worst of the wind. The ice beneath them continued to crack, each new fissure a reminder that time was running out. Thompson took a deep breath and gave the signal. The cargo door opened, letting in a blast of frigid air. The crowd below watched in awe as his orange-clad figure began descending on the rescue cable, spinning slowly as he dropped toward the ice. His training had covered countless scenarios, but this one was unique. He wasn't just dealing with frightened victims, but with a protective mother who might see him as a threat. As he neared the ice, Thompson began speaking in soft, soothing tones that carried despite the helicopter's noise. Luna's ears twitched at his voice, but she didn't growl or show aggression. Instead, she watched him with intelligent eyes that seemed to understand his intent. The first crucial moments would determine everything. "Easy, girl," Thompson called out, his boots touching the ice 15 feet from the stranded family. He distributed his weight carefully, studying the network of cracks surrounding them. The ice groaned beneath him, but held. Years of experience had taught him how to read ice thickness by its color and sound. They had minutes, not hours. With slow, deliberate movements, he began sliding forward on his stomach, spreading his weight across the fragile surface. Luna remained still, her only movement the occasional nuzzle to keep her puppies close. One of the pups, bolder than its siblings, wagged its tail at the approaching stranger. Chief Martinez and her team watched from shore, ready to deploy emergency boats if the ice gave way. The crowd had grown to over 100 people, all holding their breath as the rescue attempt unfolded. Someone had started live streaming the event, and messages of support were pouring in from across the state. Thompson was now just feet away from the family. He pulled out a small treat from his pocket, part of the quick preparation before deployment. "Here, girl," he said softly, offering it to Luna. The mother dog stretched her neck forward, sniffing cautiously before gently taking the treat. It was a small gesture that spoke volumes about her trust. Moving with practiced efficiency, Thompson began preparing for the most challenging part of the rescue. The puppies would need to go first. They were the most vulnerable to the cold and the lightest to lift. He opened the mesh bag, its interior warmed by chemical heat packs. "Flight deck, this is Thompson. Beginning puppy extraction. Request stable hover and minimum rotor wash." Luna, displaying remarkable understanding, watched as Thompson gently lifted her first puppy. The tiny creature squirmed slightly but remained calm as it was placed in the warm bag. One by one, each puppy was carefully transferred, their mother's eyes never leaving them. The bag was designed to be breathable and transparent, allowing Luna to see her babies were safe. With the puppies secured, Thompson faced his next challenge, convincing Luna to trust him with her own rescue. The ice was deteriorating quickly now, water seeping up through the cracks. He attached a rescue harness to her, modified to accommodate her size and shape. Luna accepted the strange contraption with remarkable patience, as if sensing this was her path to safety. "Flight deck, puppies secured. Beginning mother's extraction. Be advised, ice conditions critical." The next few moments were a choreographed dance of skill and trust. Thompson signaled the helicopter, and the rescue cable began its slow ascent. Luna remained surprisingly calm as she felt her paws leave the ice, her eyes fixed on the bag containing her puppies. Thompson held both the puppy carrier and Luna's harness, rising slowly through the swirling snow. From the shore, a cheer erupted as the family cleared the ice. The helicopter held steady as Thompson and his precious cargo were pulled into the cargo bay. The moment they were safely inside, Luna rushed to the mesh bag, nose pressing against it to check each puppy. All 6 wagged their tails at their mother's familiar presence, completely unaware of the magnitude of their rescue. Lieutenant Reeves banked the helicopter gently, turning toward the shore where emergency vehicles waited. In the cargo bay, Thompson wrapped emergency blankets around Luna while keeping the puppies warm in their... The Coast Guard helicopter's approach to shore was a masterpiece of precision flying. Lieutenant Reeves kept the aircraft steady despite the shifting winds, her focus absolute as she coordinated with ground teams below. Chief Martinez had already cleared a landing zone in the parking lot, where veterinary teams waited with warming equipment and emergency supplies. Thompson kept a watchful eye on his precious cargo during the short flight. Luna remained remarkably calm, dividing her attention between her puppies in the mesh carrier and the window where she could see the ground approaching. The puppies, perhaps sensing they were out of danger, had begun to doze off in their warm cocoon, tiny paws twitching in dreams. As the helicopter touched down, a well-orchestrated rescue operation sprang into action. Dr. Sarah Wilson, the lead emergency veterinarian, approached the aircraft with her team as soon as the rotors began to slow. They carried specialized warming equipment, IV fluids, and monitoring devices, prepared for any complications from the cold exposure. Thompson emerged first, carefully handling the mesh carrier containing the puppies. Luna followed close behind, refusing to let her babies out of sight. The mother dog's protective instinct remained strong, but she showed remarkable trust in the humans helping her family. Her paws were checked for signs of frostbite as she walked, but she had kept her puppies so well protected that they had suffered minimal exposure to the extreme cold. Inside the mobile veterinary unit, a warming station had been prepared. The temperature was carefully controlled to prevent too rapid warming, which could be as dangerous as the cold itself. Each puppy was gently examined, their tiny bodies checked for any signs of hypothermia or distress. Luna watched every movement, her intelligent eyes following the veterinarian's hands as they worked. "Temperature is slightly low but within manageable range," Dr. Wilson announced, checking the first puppy. "No signs of frostbite or tissue damage." One by one, each puppy received the same thorough examination. The white-patched male, who had tried to explore earlier on the ice, squirmed and licked the veterinarian's hand, earning chuckles from the team. Warming blankets were wrapped around each puppy, their body temperatures gradually rising to normal levels. Luna received her own examination, though she seemed more concerned with keeping track of her puppies than her own comfort. The veterinary team discovered minor scrapes on her paw pads from the rough ice, but otherwise she was in remarkable condition given the ordeal. The news crews had arrived by now, their cameras capturing the heartwarming scene of recovery. Thompson stayed nearby, having formed a special bond with the family he'd rescued. Luna occasionally pressed her nose against his hand, a gesture of trust and gratitude that spoke volumes about her intelligence and understanding of the situation. Dr. Wilson's team administered small amounts of warm fluids to keep the puppies hydrated. They were already showing signs of improved energy, their tiny tails wagging as they received attention from the medical team. Luna accepted water and some high-energy food, though she wouldn't eat until she saw her puppies eating first. As the immediate medical concerns were addressed, questions arose about the family's future. They had no identifying chips or collars, and no one in the growing crowd recognized them from the area. The abandoned boathouse where they had been staying was clearly no proper home for a mother dog and her puppies. Chief Martinez had already contacted the local animal shelter, but offers to adopt the family were pouring in from witnesses and social media followers who had watched the rescue unfold. Thompson found himself particularly invested in their fate, having seen firsthand the extraordinary bond between Luna and her puppies. The veterinary team decided to keep the family under observation for 24 hours to ensure no delayed effects from their ice ordeal surfaced. They were transferred to a local emergency animal hospital, where a special ward was prepared to keep them comfortable and together. Luna's dedication never wavered. She helped the staff move her puppies one by one, counting them with gentle nose touches as they were settled into their warm, safe space. Throughout the evening, Luna's story spread across social media and news outlets. The Coast Guard released footage from Thompson's rescue camera, showing the remarkable trust between rescuer and mother dog. Animal rescue organizations praised the quick thinking and coordination between different agencies that led to the successful rescue. Dr. Wilson's final examination that evening showed all 7 dogs in stable condition. The puppies were nursing normally, their body temperatures fully regulated. Luna had finally allowed herself to truly rest, curled protectively around her family in their hospital bed. Thompson stopped by before heading back to base, and Luna's tail thumped softly against the blankets in recognition of her rescuer. The day's events had demonstrated the extraordinary capabilities of emergency responders, the remarkable instincts of a mother's love, and the community's ability to come together in a crisis. As night fell over the hospital, Luna and her puppies slept peacefully, their ice adventure behind them, and a future full of promise ahead. 3 weeks after the dramatic ice rescue, Luna and her puppies found themselves in a very different setting. The abandoned boathouse was a distant memory, replaced by the warm, cheerful surroundings of the Silver Paws Animal Sanctuary. The story of their rescue had touched hearts across the country, leading to an outpouring of support and donations that helped the sanctuary create a special space for the family's recovery. Luna's puppies had grown noticeably, their personalities emerging more each day. The little male with the white patch, now nicknamed Scout, had maintained his adventurous spirit, though with considerably more caution than during his Ice Lake experience. His siblings, now named Storm, River, Frost, Crystal, and Aurora, were equally thriving, their coat colors deepening and their playful energy filling the sanctuary with joy. Jake Thompson, the Coast Guard rescuer who had braved the ice to save them, became a regular visitor. Luna always recognized the sound of his truck pulling up to the sanctuary, her tail wagging in greeting before he even reached the door. On this particular spring morning, his visit carried special significance. It was Adoption Day. The sanctuary had made an unusual but heartwarming decision. Instead of separating the family, they had worked to find homes that would keep them connected. Through careful screening and considerable coordination, they had matched the puppies with families all living within a 10-mile radius of each other. Even more remarkably, Thompson himself had completed the adoption paperwork for Luna. The families gathered in the sanctuary's main room, creating a circle of love around the mother dog and her puppies. Each had already spent time getting to know their future family members, and Luna had observed each interaction with her characteristic intelligent attention. She seemed to understand that these people would care for her babies with the same devotion she had shown on the ice. Scout was the first to go to his new family, a retired couple who lived on a farm with plenty of space for an energetic puppy to explore safely. Storm and River were adopted by neighboring families, ensuring the sisters would grow up together. Frost found his home with a local veterinarian who had assisted in their rescue. Crystal and Aurora went to families with young children, where they would have playmates their own age. Luna watched each departure with a mixture of dignity and maternal care, giving each puppy a final nuzzle before they left with their new families. The sanctuary had arranged for regular family reunions, ensuring the bonds between mother and puppies would remain strong as they grew. When everyone else had left, Thompson knelt beside Luna, scratching her favorite spot behind her ears. "Ready to go home, girl?" he asked softly. Luna's response was to press her head against his chest, the same gesture of trust she had shown during their first meeting on the ice. The sanctuary staff gathered to bid farewell to their special resident. Luna had left paw prints on all their hearts, her grace and devotion serving as a reminder of the extraordinary depths of animal love and resilience. As Thompson led her to his truck, Luna took one last look at the sanctuary before jumping confidently into the passenger seat, ready for her next adventure. That evening, as Luna settled into her new home overlooking the coast, the setting sun painted the sky in colors reminiscent of that dramatic rescue day. Thompson watched as she explored her new surroundings, her step light and happy. On his phone, messages from the other families showed pictures of her puppies settling into their new homes, all safe, all loved, all connected. The frozen lake was now a memory, transformed by love, courage, and community into a beginning rather than an end. Luna's family had grown beyond blood, encompassing not just her puppies but all the humans who had come together to save them. As she curled up in her new bed, the sound of waves replacing the crack of ice, Luna's story stood as a testament to the extraordinary things that can happen when humanity and nature unite in moments of crisis, creating miracles on ice that lead to lifetimes of love.